Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Grayboardgamer here with my next playthrough series and one of the top 2 receivers of votes during my last poll. That's Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island. Let's get the box open, get the game set up. Before we start the setup, a couple of quick notes. I have one of the original, maybe not original, but one of the early editions of the game, and I believe it was from 2012, and mine came with this rule book. I went and downloaded the updated rule book and printed it out, so even though I'm using the older version of the game, we're going to go ahead and use the updated version of the rule book. I'll follow the setup as it does in the rule book. First, of course, you put your board out on the table, and next you're going to select your scenario. And I've chosen Cannibal Island. We'll go ahead and take a closer look at this card. I've played through this scenario several times in preparation for filming this, and for me this has been an extremely difficult scenario to gain any kind of success on. So I'm going to make a few changes during the setup, and you'll see, and I'll talk about those to make it a little bit easier. But even with making it a little bit easier, it's still an extremely difficult scenario to win for me. Other people may have a strategy that I'm not aware of, that they're getting through this with relative ease, but I have not found that to be the case. It is hard to believe, but the sinking of your ship was only the first bad news. You landed on a very dangerous island, Cannibal Island. In order to survive, you will have to fight. You will also need to track down the villages and burn them down, one after another. There are a couple scenario-specific setup changes. One of them is place island tile number 4, and that is this tile right here. And you can tell that it's number 4 by the number 4 down here at the bottom. And we're going to place it as shown on the scenario card on that location of the map. And it's going to be placed face down because on turn number 4, which we'll find out later, that's when it'll be revealed. And also at the start, the rum, which here is the flask of rum, and the pipe and tobacco will be our starting items instead of selecting 2 random items. Taking a quick look at the rest of the Cannibal Island scenario card, and this is one of the things that makes this very difficult for me, is you only have 9 rounds to win or to complete the scenario. So you have to take risks and you have to move quickly. Also, there are other special rules which deal with when the City of the Cannibals, which is that special tile number 4, gets revealed. Fear essentially means you cannot have your camp located in a village or with a village or on the City of the Cannibals, and those are cannibal villages. And then if you try and do a gather resources action, it takes more than 1 pawn, or one more pawn than normal to do that action. And then war would be actually attacking or attempting to burn down one of the villages, which is what you need to do in order to make the city of the cannibals weak enough in order to attack it. As you can see here, the goal of the scenario is to destroy the city of cannibals, and the strength of that city, they have it here as 21 minus Y, where Y represents 3 times the number of burnt down cannibal villages. So you can see you got to bring that way down from 21, or you have to have an extremely powerful weapon strength. If you can build it up really high, maybe you don't have to burn down too many villages, but I've found that you have to burn down at least 3 or 4 villages to bring that down to a manageable number for the attack, and you have to do it quickly because you only have 9 rounds to do it in. Also, on the special scenario here, anytime the book symbol comes up on one of the cards, which I'll show you where that is located also, you have to play out this scenario here, which is the attack of the cannibals, which is extremely devastating because it causes damage to every player in the game. but that damage is decreased depending on how many villages you've burnt down already. So if you've burnt down, it's because it's 3 minus X. So if you've already burnt down 3 villages, then this attack does nothing. But if it comes early in the game and you got to take 3 wounds to every player right away, it's extremely devastating. And it also causes more wounds, causes you to have to move your camp. So there's a lot of effects that Attack of the Cannibals cause that make this scenario so difficult. Then if the little mystery or tiki symbol comes up on one of our tiles, that's when the villages pop up. And there's 4 of them, so the first time we see this symbol, it'll be the first village, second, third, fourth, and so on, and they each have their own special effects that occur. And then of course we have the description for the 4 tokens here, what they represent if they come up whenever we gather any resource tokens. Then we also have our 2 scenario-specific items that we can build, the ballista and the canoe. And I think I've gone over everything, and we're ready to go ahead and continue with the setup. I'll go ahead and place that tile number 4 face down as laid out on the setup changes on the Cannibal Island card. Now we choose our characters. I'm going to use 4 and play this as a 4-player game using the Explorer, the Carpenter, the Cook, and the Soldier. And also, one of the things I'm going to do to make the scenario a little bit easier to make it through, if possible, is I'm going to have the dog accompany us. And the dog and his purple token allows him to tag along for an explore or a hunt action. Along with that, we will also add the character-specific inventions. The Explorer can do the shortcut, the Cook, the fireplace, the Soldier, the spear, and the Carpenter can create the snare. I placed each of them next to the respective character's card. If they are successful in creating their invention during the game, you can see that there's a 2 determination symbol, 2 determination token symbol next to their invention. So if they are successful at creating that, that character will get those 2 determination tokens to use later on. And these are the colors that I'm going to use: Explorer black, Cook yellow, Carpenter blue, Soldier orange, and the dog has his purple token. Also, I've placed the red health markers or wound markers at the beginning point, and as they get wounded they'll move to the right and cause loss in morale. As you can see, these different arrows, whenever they are crossed, that will lower the morale on the main game board. Next we have our invention cards. You can see that some of them, 9 to be exact, have these 2 arrows next to their name. Those are the ones that are going to go in every game, and the rest of these will be in a different stack for us to select from randomly. But first we'll put down the 9 initial possible inventions, and we'll place them on these spots on the board right there. Those 9 are in place and they're in no particular order. Now we'll take the remaining deck. I'm going to give it a good mix, shuffle them up, because we're going to draw 5 random. So I'll stop and then I'll cut them, and then these will be the 5 that we can draw from, or that we can attempt to build during the game. We have the shield, the sack, the bow, that's on the wrong side, the pit, and the lantern. So these 5 will go onto the board also. Those 5 are in place now. The remaining items that are possible for maybe to be added later on during the game, they're in their own draw pile off to the side of the board. Next we'll place a marker on the 0 point of the morale track. We'll place our white token on 0 for morale. And as you can see, going to the left, when the morale decreases, you can lose determination tokens. And if you get to the right of the 0, you can gain determination tokens, and if it's all the way to the right, you can also have the option to heal a wound. Next, we place one of these black tokens at the top of the weapon strength track to show that our weapon value is starting at 0. And you can see this wood symbol there. It takes 1 wood to successfully create a weapon level. You also have to be successful in the task, but you have to have 1 wood to do so. These other areas here represent whether or not the shelter has been built. This is your roof level. These are your palisades. And these numbers up here, we'll be concentrating on this one because we're doing a 4-player game. And in order to build the shelter or build a roof or a palisade level, we have to spend either 4 wood or 3 furs to do so. We now populate these 3 spaces for the adventure cards with the adventure decks. We have the brown for the building action, the gray, blackish for the gather resources, and the green for exploration actions. And you don't always have to perform these because they're often bad things. There are some good ones mixed in there. But what we need to do is shuffle each of these decks well and then place them here for draw piles. Now that those are in place, we will shuffle our deck of beast cards. I have possible beasts that we could hunt or get attacked by during the game. Initially, none start on the draw pile. They have to be added through either exploring or cards that tell you to do so. Those are shuffled, and we'll just place them off to the side for now for future use. The beast cards are shuffled and ready to go, so now we grab this large deck of mystery cards, and these will also just be shuffled and placed off to the side for possible future use. Now we have our remaining island tiles. This is going to be our starting tile with the beach where the game will begin. So we keep that one separate, and it is number 8, as you can see down here at the bottom. Let the camera focus. There we go. And the beach will start on that hex. And now we have this token that we'll place on there. The little X marks the spot. That's our camp. If we successfully build a shelter, we'll flip this to show that we have a shelter built. But to start the game, we only have a campsite on the beach. The remaining 9 tiles will get shuffled and placed on the side of the board for a tile draw pile. There's only 9 here because we already have tile number 4 for the future City of the Cannibals. So those get shuffled up and mixed up. And we'll place this off to the side for our island tile draw pile. Next, we would normally take the starting items deck, shuffle it, and draw 2 to start. But with the Cannibal Island scenario, it specifically told us to take the flask of rum and pipe and tobacco. And you can see there's 2 little squares on each one. I'll put these right here so we know that, well, actually let's put them up here. They're easier to see for gameplay. And we'll take 4 of these, 2 for each card, and place them on those blank spots, and that's how many uses we can have for each of those items. As we use it, we'll take one of those tokens off. When both of them have been expended, that's it. That item is no longer able to be used. Our tokens are in place. The flask of rum, when used, recovers 1 health, and the pipe and tobacco, when used, the character that uses it gains 2 determination tokens. I traded the tokens out for the white ones because the rulebook stated to put white ones on there. I don't think it's really that important, but you may need the black tokens later on to cover up different items on the invention area. But also, as I'm looking through the viewfinder, I can see that the white tokens are easier to see. Next, we take our discovery tokens. That's a stack of tokens here. And we will give these a quick mix, just mix them around. And then we'll place them back off to the side to, well, it's not easy to do one-handed. So I'm going to go ahead and mix these up off camera, pile them up, and stack them right over there. Next, we'll place our starting card on the threat area here, and there are 3 of them. The game tells you to go with food crates to be the first one to go on there, but there's also an option to draw them randomly. And these look very similar to these event cards, and I don't know if I can even see it on the camera. This one's a little more golden color and is bluish as compared to the like more greenish color and a just plain black or black gray background. But there's only 3 of these. So I'm going to just shuffle these up, and I'll use that option to start with a random one and get Captain's Chest. You see a large chest floating on the water. It used to belong to the ship's captain. And then the actions you can take that'll give you items, or if it leaves the game board, then nothing happens. And I'll explain that in more detail when we get to the threat phase. The other 2 starting threat cards will go off to the side and not be used in the game. Now we'll have our event cards, those other ones, which there are several of. You can see there's quite a few. And you're going to separate these into 2 stacks. Now they look the same on the back, but you have to look on the card. They're either going to have this question mark symbol, no matter the color, whether it's green, gray, or it may even be brown like that. So all the ones with that symbol, regardless of color, will be in one pile, and then the other half will have this book symbol, or sometimes more than one book symbol. And the directions state that you're to take the number of turns that the scenario has, and this is 9, and then cut that in half, round up. So in this case, it would be 4.5 round up to 5. So we would take 5 of the ones with the question mark and 5 of the ones with the book on them at random, face down, and then shuffle those 5 and 5 together and make a deck of 10 to place up here. But what I'm going to do is, like I said at the beginning, I'm going to make the scenario a little bit easier and more manageable for myself, and hopefully I can get through a lot more turns and not die right away to show you as much of the game as possible. That being said, if I end up having a catastrophe and the game ends really early, we'll reset and we'll play again, and I'll do another playthrough if it goes too quickly. But one of the options in the rulebook to make the game easier is to include less of the cards with the book symbol on them. Because, as I described earlier in the setup, the book symbol triggers the attack of the cannibals, which is tons and tons of damage, especially early in the game. If you don't have a shelter built, if you haven't burnt any villages down, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 wounds to every player right away, which is going to make your morale sink. And if you don't have determination tokens, it's going to cause wounds, which I'll explain all this, but I mean, it can snowball pretty quick. And within the first 2 rounds, if you come across a couple of those, or the first 2 or 3 rounds, you come across a couple of cards with the book on it, game's done, no matter how well things went up to that point, because you just cannot manage that amount of damage. So in order to make it a little more manageable, I'm going to take 6 of the cards with the question mark and 3 of the cards with the book symbol, and that'll give me the 9. I don't have to round since I'm not splitting them in half evenly, so we'll only have 3 of the book symbol in there, hopefully giving us some time, or they could come up early anyway and wipe me out, but give us more of a chance at making it further into the scenario. This initial deck of 9 event cards will go here on the event space. Since we're playing with 4 players, this part right here, the arrange camp action, changes. In a solo 2 or 3 player game, the arrange camp action gives you 2 determination tokens and increases morale by 1. But in a 4 player game, you put this card over that space, and now the arrange camp action gives you 2 determination tokens or raises the morale by 1. Again, in a 1, 2, or 3 player, you do both, but in a 4 player game, you have to choose. Another item that's different is this beach deck. I got this as a additional like mini expansion when I kickstarted the book. I believe it's Board Games That Tell Stories, if I'm saying the title right, and it came with this when it came in the mail. And this is just an optional thing that you can do, and you can see it has the beach tile symbol on it and the gathering resources action. And what you can do with this is I'll get it shuffled up and placed back off to the side here. And as an additional action that you can choose, I can gather resources on my beach tile here. And instead of going for wood or fish, I can just declare that I'm gathering resources on the beach. And if I'm successful, I will draw the top card on there. And regardless of what the card is, whether it's nothing or if it's something successful, the card will go back and then the deck will get shuffled again. And I think half of the cards are nothing, so you could end up doing this over and over again since you're shuffling the deck and getting nothing. So you have to weigh the risk reward when you're doing that, because either you may be completely successful, but you may get wounded and have to draw one of these cards here, which will maybe cause more bad effects, and then you'll find out that you did all that and gained nothing, which is part of the brutal nature of the game itself, and especially with this Cannibal Island scenario. And the rulebook states that the youngest player would go first. Looking at the cards here, the carpenter looks to be the youngest looking character, so we'll take the first player token and put it next to her, and she'll be the first player, and we'll rotate in a clockwise fashion. So from the carpenter to the soldier to the cook to the explorer back to the carpenter. So when we're rotating the first player token, that's the direction that it will go. I'm going to move the dog. We'll place him up here next to the explorer. Okay, yeah, I can see him now on camera. I know that these are cut off a little bit at the bottom, but when I'm talking about things or doing things on their specific card, we will zoom in on those. And then I'll also, early in the gameplay, we'll take a look at each of their cards and go over what their special abilities are. But at the time being, they have no determination tokens, and you need determination tokens to perform those special abilities. So once a player gains enough of the determination tokens that look like this, once they gain enough to perform at least one of the actions on their card, then we'll go ahead and zoom in and take a look at what those available actions are. Quick recap. Again, the goal of our scenario is to destroy the city of the cannibals. And we have to find some cannibal villages quickly and burn them down quickly in order to make the city of cannibals something that we can manage to destroy. Because with it starting with a strength of 21, we're not really going to be successful unless we have like a level 15 or 16 weapon, which is really difficult to get something of that level. I mean, it's possible. And again, these numbers you see on here, like the roof, the palisades, and the weapon, the roof ends in 4, palisades 4, weapon in 6. You can go past those numbers. That's just what's on the board. You would just use additional tokens to remind you of what the actual level of those is at the time. And if we get up above that, maybe I'll grab some 10, 12-sided dice or something so we can keep track of the levels a lot easier than piling up tokens on there. And one final thing, the dog doesn't take wounds, doesn't eat food, anything like that. He's always with us. But in the scenario, in the rulebook states, if one of our players dies, which means they reach the skull and crossbones on their card, then that's supposed to be the end of the game and that's it. Now with this particular scenario, I don't personally feel that that's thematically correct. If one person were to die, that doesn't mean everybody else wouldn't be successful. It just means it'd be much more difficult for them to take out the city of cannibals. So maybe if one of the players dies, I may make a house rule decision and just go ahead and continue the scenario and only call it a outright defeat if all 4 characters die, because that makes more sense to me theme-wise. Like if the cook were to die, I don't think the explorer, the carpenter, and the soldier are just going to lay down and give up. Since they are shipwrecked, they still have to live on this island until they're rescued, or forever if they're never rescued. So I think they would continue to go after the cannibals so they can destroy them and live peacefully until either rescue or old age comes and takes them away. With all that said, the setup is complete. We're ready to begin our first round, and I have the plain wooden marker with the game, and we'll put it on the first round space, which you can barely see there, of the Cannibal Island. And in the next video, we will get started. Thank you for watching the setup of Robinson Crusoe. Please check out the other videos on the channel. If you like what you see, please consider supporting the channel. You can either do that through Patreon or through my GoFundMe page. You can also email me, and I also have a PayPal account set up for grayboardgamer. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please leave some comments. I like hearing from everybody, even if it's something that I made a mistake on. As always, your support is appreciated, and I'll see you in my next video.